Hello, everybody. So our speaker tonight is somebody somewhat known to us, but it's our anniversary. It's FCAT's 10th anniversary. We've been doing this for 10 years. Tonight would may be our 101st presentation, free public presentation. And in that time, we've drank a lot of wine and a lot of potlucks. And heard from a lot of interesting people, experts on climate topics or environmental topics. And I was looking at a log I keep, and we've had over 3,000 attendees to these meetings, cumulative. And that's not counting the visitors to the website, to our YouTube page on the website. So 3,000 people. We're not a formal group. We're not incorporated. We don't ask for or accept any money from anybody, which allows us to pretty much say whatever we want to say. We don't have to worry about our sponsor. But tonight, I've been talking to Joy and, well, everybody, Cynthia and Bill, about the denial of climate change. We know that there's a lot of climate change deniers, but now they're in charge of our government. And let me share my screen here. Let's see if I can bring this up.
Tom?
Yes?
Do you mind if we just did a moment of celebration before we get you completely started? Everybody get your glasses ready.
Recording in progress.
Oh boy.
I'm going to try and pop this quick.
Sorry, I've lost my, oh boy. You better start celebrating now, Cynthia, while I try to figure out what I've done wrong here.
Okay, all right, guys. Did you hear that? Yes.
Yes, well done.
Very good, very good. Now hold your glasses up to the screen, if you would. And I'll pour you each glass. A little fuzzy, bubbly. To 10 years of persistence and throwing lucky pebbles into the ocean. Death to climate change.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, I've got the presentation up again. Joy, I can't hear you.
I'm just wondering if it's where the echo is coming from.
If the presentation is on a separate machine or PC, then it's picking up audio, so you can use that source.
Oh, here.
Well, now I don't hear.
It would be good if everybody muted themselves.
How is it now?
Perfect.
It's good.
Stopped.
Good.
That might have been me. I had a problem logging in with my laptop and the sound was completely silent. So I logged in a second time from my computer and I left the laptop. They were both muted. So I don't know, but when I muted my laptop, it seems like it fixed the sound problem. So apologies, everybody.
Okay, it's good now. Thank you. So I'm already mentioned about our 10th anniversary, and I'm one of the FCAT volunteers. We have several others here. Joy is the brains of the outfit, and we have Cynthia Bill is our techie guy, and Deanna is very active in going to a lot of meetings on our behalf, reporting back. So this is just kind of a philosophical question: is does it do any good to deny climate change? And I have an argument that in some ways it works for people. But tonight, first, we're going to give a climate change report. The FCAT stands for Fallbrook Climate Action Team, as you see by our logo. And as we have a climate action plan, which we stole from our friends at the Climate Action Campaign. Because back when we began this, Climate Action Campaign was also, it's a pretty big outfit down in San Diego. They were just beginning, and Joy and I spent a lot of time rubbing elbows with them, learning what the climate action world was about. So we kind of borrowed their climate action plan that they were using at the time for the city of San Diego. And it has four main elements of clean energy, sustainable transportation, and land use is something that everybody forgets about, but it's actually one of the most important and complicated, and zero waste. And so what is the status of these things? Because one thing FCAT does, Deanna and Joy and myself and others have attended local government meetings, and we speak up for climate action, for climate change. There's nobody else is going to do that in Fallbrook, so we've appointed ourselves. And what we see in clean energy is that it's expanding, but there's still many obstacles, price, permits, what have you. Electrification of homes was a big program in California and many of the larger cities where they said that all new homes had to be all electric. But now the state is talking about pausing that program. Sustainable transportation. I think, as everybody knows, electric vehicles we like them, but they're expensive, and there's very few charging stations. And there's one company that people don't like in particular, but mass transit in Fallbrook. We've had North County Transit come and talk to FCAT 2 or 3 times over the years. And the downtown Fallbrook bus, which goes from here to Vista, it's doubled its frequency from once per hour to 2 per hour. So that's a little bit of progress. We can't take all the credit for that. We can't take very little credit for that, being a thorn in the side to North County Transit. And another part of sustainable transportation is bike lanes. Well, we really haven't seen any around Fallbrook. That doesn't seem to be something that our planning group thinks is important, or the county of San Diego. And sidewalks. There are a lot of places in Fallbrook where there are no sidewalks. Harriet has led the way on this a little bit, and we have had some slow progress. But all progress is slow. It really is. Land use. Sorry. There's the plan to conserve 30% of land and coastal waters. Big goal. Not sure where we stand on that. Fallbrook Land Conservancy has just opened up a new preserve and plant more trees. Our climate action plan says 35% more trees. Well, you say 35% more than what? 35% more than today. There's going to be no end to it. And the Land Conservancy has been doing very well on that for us. There are many FCATers who belong to the Land Conservancy. So hooray for them. And zero waste. That's a really hard one. We've talked about that a lot at FCAT. The question is, have we changed our habits? I don't think so, but it's a goal. Let me keep going. San Diego's climate action plan has been failing. They're not meeting their goals, and various agencies have been backing off those goals. But the Sierra Club and the San Diego Climate Action Campaign has sued the city to put those goals back in the plan. And recently there's been a settlement to have that happen. California has a very ambitious, comprehensive climate action plan. As you can see, 85% reduction in greenhouse gases, 94% reduction in oil consumption. We're not making that right now, but it's good to have goals. I mean, if you made the goals quickly, then they're too easy. So hard goals is where we should be at. When we get down to the federal government, as I mentioned at the beginning, they're actively working to undo everything we've done. Undo everything that California is doing, undo everything San Diego and Sierra Club and Climate Action Campaign is doing. They put the climate deniers in charge. And Inflation Reduction Act funds are just not being dispersed.
Reality is that despite the political headwinds of 2020, California.
I'm sorry, who's that talking?
Tom, I think some newcomers need to be muted.
Yeah, somebody's got their TV on, I think.
Maybe John?
No.
Okay, well, it's
think
looking better,
everybody's
sounding
good
better. The worst part is that strikes me is that the words climate change are actually being censored now. Pretty soon it's going to be a crime to mention it. But I want to talk about sustainable energy. Look what we've done with sustainable energy over the years. The yellow is cumulative power. Blue is what's been added each year. And 2025, we haven't added very much into blue, but it's getting larger, up to 17 megawatts in California. Now, here's what's happening. I don't know if everybody likes charts as much as I do. On the chart on the left, it shows use of natural gas was increasing, and then it flattened out. It flattened out lately. Whereas the green line, renewables, has just been taking off, going straight up. And we broke up the renewals on the chart on the right, but I'll get to that. And you see coal has been going down steadily. Of course, now we have a government that says drill, drill, baby, drill. And nuclear has been flat for a long time. But going back to the green line, the renewables, look what we have. The green line is in this this box on the right is wind. it's increased from nothing and been flattening out lately. But solar, you see, has been just increasing and increasing. So there's some good news in there. Bad news is that the coal and natural gas drilling are being encouraged to restart. Now, I think everybody can find themselves in this poll. 80% people are frustrated that there's so much political disagreement. 73% are sad about what's happening to the earth. 56% are anxious about the future. Half of us are motivated to do something about climate change. Another half are suspicious of groups and people pushing for climate change. I think we saw that yesterday. The Village News put this talk on their Facebook page, and it got swarmed with all kinds of comments about people like FCAT. We're such an evil corporation. 45% of people are optimistic that we can address it. 34% are guilty that we're not doing enough. And 32% are annoyed that there's just so much attention on the issue. And I think everybody can find themselves in there somewhere, perhaps more than one place. Well, here's what's happening. The world seems to be surrendering to climate change. Look at Mexico. The new president of Mexico, she's a climate scientist. And she's continuing the program to build fossil fuel infrastructure. I mean, there's practicalities, hard economics involved with that. But what a shame. Canada has a new prime minister, and his official act is to repeal the carbon landmark, the carbon tax. And in Britain, Parliament is debating about dropping their legally combining commitments to the Paris Accords because it's impossible, they say. Well, as Obama said, if it was easy, we would have done it already. In Europe Le Monde, that's a French newspaper, leaders are rethinking their commitments. Because if everybody else is quitting, why should they lead the way? And that's what hurts to see the United States stop being the leader. Because when we stop leading the way, people just start peeling off. It's what's been going on in the United States, belief in climate change. The climate is changing. You see, at the top, Democrats, of course, are the most. Overall, if you average them all, it's gone from 72% 7 years ago to 78% now. So it's progress. Independents are gone up, it's progress. Republicans, 52 to 62%. Now, I read the article behind this. Those Republicans that are adding on to that are young Generation X. That's Generation X. The old guys still say, no way. But it's increasing. So there's some hope. But how do you turn that around? If you're a denier, if you're a climate denier, how are you going to turn that around? Use doubt. That's the best means for competing with the body of fact. That's how they did it on tobacco. And that's how they're doing it today. One way they're doing it today. The other way they're doing it today is that they're censoring us. So I got the 3 monkeys there covering their eyes and ears, and the one in the middle is covering his mouth. And here's where they're not even letting us talk about it anymore. EPA says they're not even going to measure greenhouse gases. Well, that's one way of denying it, because next year when you say, well, how high has greenhouse gases gone up? They're going to say, well, it hasn't gone up at all. And they're right, because they stopped counting it. And we see that they're they're trying to abolish NOAA and all the research that's being done there. And FEMA, who comes around after a disaster, they're being cut too. They're losing all of their brains. All of the senior people have taken early buyouts. These early buyouts you heard about on the news, it's the senior people that take those because they're more qualified. They're the ones that are ready to say, okay, I've had enough. I can live on this. So all of your talent, all of your skills, all of your leadership, they're the ones that go first. And what's happening here now is that federal administration is removing climate information from all government websites. They've been ordered to scrub climate change from all their websites. And that includes the data that we've been collecting. And here's the part that really kills me. I was reading about the Santa Monica Bay Foundation, really big, respectable nonprofit, trying to save Santa Monica Bay, make it clean again. Well, it turns out they take some government money. And so they, afraid that they would lose that money, they've been obeying in advance. Without being told, they're just scrubbing all references to climate change, environmental justice, and diversity initiatives from their website. I think we don't even need people like that. I don't care what happens to them now. And weather services, no more weather balloons. So if bad weather is coming, we're not going to know it. We're not going to know what's coming. When it hits us, we're not going to count it. When there's a mess to clean up, there won't be anybody there to fix it. That's how you deny climate change. Before, during, and after. So doubt's easy to spread. The claim is they'll be able to say there's no data. Your children going to do a school project are going to go to websites and they're not going to be able to find any data. They're not going to be able to find any studies, which allows them to say all the other things. It's all a conspiracy. We don't share their values, or we're socialist. Actually, I don't really understand why being a socialist is a bad thing. But how is denial working for us? I remember back when the COVID first started, back in 2020, there was a handful of COVID cases in the United States, and the government was trying to deny that there was a pandemic. But there was a cruise ship off the coast of California where COVID had shown up on the cruise ship and a lot of people were getting sick. And the government would not let that cruise ship dock because if it docked, they would have to count those cases. So they left those poor people out at sea for a long time. But here's how well denial is working. Drought has returned to Southern California. You see San Diego County is down there at the bottom left. And we're in a severe drought. I shake my head at the television news weather forecast when they say that, oh, we're going to start drying up next week, like we just had a lot of rain. It hasn't rained here in a year. This is the driest 8-month period with records going back to 1877. Now, this is Los Angeles rain meter that they're using. Just to clarify that. But wildfires, we know wildfires are taking off. This is a picture of the Palisades fire, but it isn't just California. The top paragraph is talking about England and Wales are having double the number of wildfires that they had 3 years ago. And here the season is getting longer and it's getting worse. But you all know that. Tornadoes are increasing. Now, we could deny that. Those of us here in San Diego County, I don't know, has anybody seen a tornado lately? We could deny it really easily. And in fact, it says here, over 550 have been counted in this year already. But they're getting rid of the National Weather Service. And they'll come back 6 months from now and they'll say, well, how many are there now? Say, well, there's still only 550. Well, see, we must stop climate change. It does work to deny it. And there's a lot of people that will accept that. Antarctic ice is melting. Greenland is heading for all of its ice fields are collapsing. And that's going to really increase slowly sea level rise. But as I say here, don't worry, it won't be here. Initially, it's going to be in Asia, in Rio de Janeiro, Bangladesh, small Pacific islands, and in Holland. But we don't have to worry about it at all. In fact, when we take over Greenland, it's going to be a great business opportunity. All the ice will be gone and we can drill more fossil fuels. You know, that's what's behind why they want Greenland. They're fully aware that the ice is melting, but they deny climate change. They say we want Greenland because it's going to be our new source of fossil fuels and rare earth minerals. Pacifica, California last year. Now, they did not build these condos on the edge of a cliff. So this says that the sea level rise is occurring at 0.15 inches per year. 0.15 doesn't seem like a lot, but it does add up it does add up. And now that I've depressed everybody, I want to talk about some good news. We have a lot of progress going, environmental progress, because in that poll that I had earlier, half the people think that we should do something about it, and they are doing something about it. Solar power is now cheaper than fossil fuels. That's a fact. And you can see it. It's easy to install. The resource is available all the time. Whereas fuel, fossil fuel, you need to drill it, refine it, and move it to where it needs to go. So we finally crossed that line where solar power is now cheaper. And I know the Sierra Club has been watching for a long time how the Klamath River has been removing these 4 dams and turning the management of the valley back to the Native Americans. And already salmon and steelhead trout are returning to spawn. In this picture, you see a steelhead trout in very shallow water. So that means he's pretty far upstream if the water's that shallow. That's happening everywhere. In all the tributaries leading to the Klamath River, fish are returning to spawn. And the wind and power that those dams were generating have been fully replaced with solar and wind. I know you guys know that citizen action is alive. In last November, we had a bad election, but there were a lot of climate and nature positive ballot initiatives in a dozen states that got passed. And there's a lot of groups here that represent nearly 2/3 of the United States. U.S. Climate Alliance, America's All In, Nature Conservancy, they've come and spoken to FCAT before. San Diego Climate Action Campaign, who I've mentioned 2 or 3 times already. And they've also come and talked to FCAT, I think 3 or 4 times since we began. And my favorite, the Fallbrook Land Conservancy, which is conserving land, planting trees and native plants. And that's all I have.
Let's open it up for discussion and questions and talk about what people posted. I wanted to tell everybody about a couple things that are happening. On Saturday, there'll be a big climate march in downtown San Diego at Waterfront Park at 11 a.m. And all the big climate groups are going to be protesting down there for climate. And on the 9th, we're going to have when I say we, another group, the North County group of the Sierra Club, is going to have an in-person meeting at the Fallbrook Library. If anybody would like to come and meet in person with some environmental people. And we're going to be featuring our speaker, Roger Bedart, from the Save Our Forest group, who was instrumental, was leading all of the tree planting that went on in downtown Fallbrook. Curtis, would you like to talk about what you were involved in Oregon?
Hi, Joy. I didn't prepare to talk about it, but I
Well,
can.
just what you told me about today.
Yeah, so thank you for putting this call together, Tom. The I, as some of you all know, I'm a candidate for Congress against Daryl Issa for next year, and um, I told Joy I was joining this call, and I actually have a little bit of history with climate change, and I shared that with her. Basically, Our Children's Trust is a nonprofit based in Oregon that represents youth that sue state governments and the federal government, and also internationally, sue their governments in other countries. Kids in other countries sue their governments over climate change too. Um, and I worked for about 2.5, 3 years for um, Our Children's Trust in helping those kids sue their government, including Juliana versus U.S., the lawsuit against the U.S. federal government for causing climate change. That lawsuit is the subject of a documentary called Youth v. Gov. Um, it was a wild ride. That case went back and forth up to the Supreme Court like 3 times. My role in that lawsuit was so much fun. Tom, you would have loved it. I got to go around to all the presidential libraries. I did factual research to find how the government, the US government, knew that climate change was going to happen and that fossil fuels caused climate change. And yet, sort of under a negligence theory, they decided to move forward with I used to have this in my head that with subsidizing and facilitating and doing everything they can to put us on track for like using fossil fuels. It's not all we like to blame ourselves for climate change, but this system was built by the US government and other countries mimicked it. And it's a, fossil fuel delivery system. It's very difficult to switch, as you all know, to sustainable fuels, sustainable energy when the system was built to incentivize fossil fuels. So anyway, that's my experience. Found some great things at these presidential libraries. Believe it or not, President Johnson was passionate about climate change. 1960, he released a book called Restoring Our Environment, that it was reports that were given to him about the environmental issues that face the US that were emerging. And he thought it was so important, he had them published as a book. It's called Restoring the Environment. So, and in that book, it predicted the carbon levels that we have today. So that wasn't a surprise. They knew that if they did this, this is what would happen. So it's funny. A lot of times people say we need climate action, and I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, well, technically they had been acting. It's not like they've been passive. They've been acting to cause climate change. It'd be nice to have some climate inaction where they stopped causing it. But that's my experience basically. But I like a lot of the knowledge Tom was sharing. So anyway, I enjoyed
Thanks.
today.
Thanks, Curtis. Great to hear your input.
No problem.
Harriet, did you like to share? And anybody can chime in if they have a comment because we're in the discussion part now. Would you like to comment about the charging stations that are new and the post that you did about the bike lanes?
Yes, I was by grocery outlet today, and there used to be sort of plywood boxes, and clearly it was under construction. As you drove down Main, you could see the plywood boxes right up against the street. And
Days ago,
there,
they were still plywood boxes. Has that changed?
but the plywood boxes have come down. And behind and under inside the boxes are these big gigantic white I've got a post coming up on everythingfallbrook.org in the next day or two, but yeah, there's these big giant white boxes with big connectors, and there are basically 3 types of connectors now at that site. And I know that the little ones, the ones that are just like a little post with a couple of with a wire, like the ones at the library, they're already in use. And these big gigantic white metal boxes, I don't think they're completely ready to use yet, but yeah, I mean, it really helps to have 11 more, because 2 at the library, 2 at the FPUD headquarters, 2 at the wellness center, 1 at the 2 or 3 at the air park. So it was just kind of like scattered all around, and now it's just it's kind of there's a big chunk of them right at Grocery Outlet, so you should be able to find a spare one.
It's a new county ordinance that anytime you put in a new parking lot or refurbish a parking lot, you have to put in a EV charger for, I think it's like one for every 10 spaces or something like that.
Interesting, because Ace Hardware just redid their parking lot, but no EV chargers have appeared. So I do monitor this from time to time just to see if there's more chargers, because without chargers, it's really difficult for me to switch over. I've got a hybrid, a Prius, and right now it's really just kind of I'm sticking with the hybrid with the gas, just because it's so much easier if you want to go on road trips.
Funny story about the Ace Hardware parking lot. I put a bid in to put 8 terminals, but was denied. There was a slight bidding war, and then they opted not to put any terminals in at all.
It sounds like they're violating the county ordinance.
Well, if there's anybody that could look in on that, but yeah, they opted not to because the bidding war and the prices were a bit more than they were willing to deal with.
Well, that's interesting.
Because they could charge for those, for people charging on their plugging
Yeah,
into
they
their
would get a dividend from it. Absolutely. But to install, and most of the people that were bidding was costing or charging them to install.
Of
So
course.
they didn't see a return on that investment, or any immediate return of investment. At least my bid wasn't feasible to them. So
you do that for a living?
not a living. It was just one of my side gigs.
Okay.
Partnered up in a couple of energy companies that allowed me to find properties that were interested in putting in.
Oh, that's good to know. So Harry, did you want to talk about the
Yeah.
solar panels in China?
Tom, could you click on the map of bike lanes link? I quickly looked it up while I was while you were talking, and basically there are bike lanes like downtown along Fallbrook Street, and there's a few other spots. But what I'm seeing is a lot more e-bikes, and e-bikes really kind of keep up with traffic. So an e-bike can navigate safely without having to have a bike lane, because they're basically keeping up with the car traffic. Because
Just like
I have to say, I'm kind of scared to ride a regular bicycle, because of the hills. I would really slow down, and 10 cars would zoom past me. And if there's not a bike lane, then it's just not safe.
is this what I'm supposed to be seeing?
I can't see. You're not sharing your screen.
Not, I'm sorry.
I put a comment in the chat about map of bike lanes, and
Yeah, I clicked on that.
I've got it up. Do you want me to share my screen?
Yes.
so there are some bike lanes around, but the problem is that they don't connect everywhere, and they aren't everywhere. So you'd get a bike lane for a few blocks, but then the bike lane stops. And I got some feedback from somebody that that they tore up the bike lanes on Fallbrook Street near Stagecoach Road. So I basically Stagecoach Road is a mess. So anyways, yeah,
Can you see that?
yep.
So there's the bike lanes, right?
Wouldn't the state route and other properties like that have to go by the city ordinance to include or have bike lanes in?
Well, we're not a city,
Yeah,
but
no, you're not incorporated
County.
with the city, no. But the county and the roads that run across that section, which calls it state route, whatever, one, and especially Stagecoach, which runs all the way to
yeah, 395 would be a
95,
state
should
route.
be must include or sort of
A
requirement
lot
in
of
that.
a lot of our streets are so narrow that there's just no space for a bike lane.
Yeah.
Or you'd have to remove parking to get the bike lane. And you know, when higher density areas lose parking, it's also a problem.
Yeah, I understand that because I mean, even having the horse trails or the horse tracks next to the street was a big deal, and it goes back a long time.
So anyways, there are maps of Fallbrook's bike trails, and so anyways, you can
That's-
mess around with that.
That's nice that they have a map, but I've never seen a bike lane.
Oh, there's definitely a bike lane along Fallbrook Street between Mission and Main. There's a wider, like there's a bike lane striped. So anyways, yes, it is a problem, and the only thing, as I say, is that I see e-bikes riding around and they are so fast that they can navigate safely because they keep up with the cars.
Well, that's only about 2 blocks between Mission and Main on Fallbrook Street.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
that's nothing.
really, yeah, and it doesn't connect up to things, you know.
Yeah.
So anyways, your comment, Tom, about how solar power is renewables are cheaper than fossil fuels, and of course, with the tariffs of 145%, I think it is these days that solar panels are going to become a lot more expensive, and that price advantage may disappear.
And that's being done by climate deniers.
And that's
Yeah.
one of the points of the tariffs, because
Yeah.
the latest thing is now they're taking some of the tariffs off of cars, automobile production.
But not solar panels.
Right. So once again, more, as Curtis was explaining to us, that's the history of fossil fuel use in this country, is that it was promoted by the government, and it still is.
And that's
So-
just another excuse to deny sustainable energy. Say, oh, well, the tariffs won't let us do it. And say, well, you put the tariffs on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have something to add on that too. A lot of times, people that are not familiar with climate policy think that, oh, the solution, well, Obama did this. The solution is find a really good administrator for the EPA. And the EPA literally, like, if you look at what they do, they basically they license pollution. They're like, okay, you can pollute here, you can pollute here. And while it's an important agency and you want someone, on our side on that agency, if you want to impact climate policy, that's the Department of Energy. That's I mean, and transportation, of course, but like a comprehensive climate policy cannot be handled just by the EPA. You have to have energy and transportation has to be in on this.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Hi, Moriyama. Would you like to talk about the article that you posted?
Hey Joy, how's it going, everyone? Hi, Tom. This is my first time just joining you all, and I think I ran across this meeting on the Fallbrook Village News, and I clicked and registered, but definitely want to be more involved with the conversations here around climate change and Fallbrook. And yeah, I just thought, I'd share that article. It was something that was shared with me by one of my colleagues at UC Riverside who was talking about, pollution and brought up this article here on the U.S. Military sort of being one of the biggest contributors, right, to pollution and having one of the biggest like carbon footprints, right? So it's pretty interesting. And here, just thinking about Fallbrook geographically and our proximity here to Camp Pendleton, right? Is pretty interesting to kind of wonder about the soils here and the impact of the pollution sort of coming from Camp Pendleton into the surrounding community here. And I was just sort of fascinated with that. And part of my research here in Fallbrook, like really, so I'm a doctoral candidate at UC Riverside in the Ethnic Studies department, and I'm, looking at green spaces, community gardens, access to parks and recreation, right? So that's one of like my areas sort of research. And here in Fallbrook, we have the Fallbrook Community Garden that's situated and is parallel to Camp Pendleton, right? It's the sole community garden in Fallbrook with only 24 plots, not nearly enough, and super important, specifically for those who don't have access to outdoor spaces, who don't have access to just green spaces, place to grow food, specifically there where they're sort of located on Alturas Road that is just full of like, just dense complexes, apartment complexes, that type of housing. So advocating for those types of spaces to sort of be around, right, and to stay involved with these places to preserve them in the face of like beautification efforts and gentrification and the rest of it. Kind of, the first places to sort of go are these, right? And so for the Latino community, this place has been, I mean, they've been stewards there at the community garden, really taking care of that space, right? So I think about like the types of vegetables and medicinal plants that are being grown there, a lot of the traditional ecological knowledges that are there within the site with people who are sort of native to North America here, right? And know about these plants and have been taking care of the area, the garden. And I also think about like the pollution there with them being so close to Camp Pendleton as well, right? So I wonder about the soils, the veggies that they're eating, everything else, right? Sort of, yeah. So I just find it fascinating, and I would love to continue being a part of these sort of conversations. I also work with, Voices de Fallbrook here and advocating for more like community parks as well, with the newest one, of course, as we all know, being developed as we speak with the skate park there. I forget what the name was. Is it
Oh, the
Tomorrow?
skateboard park?
Yeah. Off of Fallbrook Street, right?
Oh, the new park that they're building. It's called the Village,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, okay. The village.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wanted
I think
to,
they bounced around with a few names, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Until
They
it
opted to go
changed
with
a few times.
what?
They changed a few times. I think they came up
Yeah.
with Valley View or something like that.
Yeah, they opted to go with the most Eurocentric name.
I know that there was talk with like, yeah, with just signage and like, to be like in the language of like the original sort of like peoples here, right? The Payogwicham here in Fallbrook or what have you. I'm not sure where we are with that, but I definitely, yeah, am interested in all of this. So thank you for having me.
Well, that's great. We'd love to have your input at our planning meeting. I'll speak for myself, but I think it'd be great to have you if you could care to join us. Get some more input from you. That'd be a great thing.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I'm not sure when you all meet or yeah.
I'll get with you,
Okay,
and
sure.
invite you when we set that up, which will be next week on
Cool.
Wednesday.
Thanks.
You can make that. So Lori, are you still on here, Lori? Yeah, I wanted for you to talk a little bit about your comment about Lilac Road.
Sure. Yeah, when I looked at that map of the bike paths, I noticed Lilac Road, for one, is shown as a bike path. And I drive down that once in a while, and I know bikers, very brave bikers, will ride on that road, but it's one of those twisty, narrow roads with blind corners. And, you know, what this tells me is these are places where you could theoretically ride a bike, but they're not bike paths. In fact, I would not be found alive on that road. It's very narrow, very dangerous. So, and people like to use it as a race course. I mean, it's so, and I think North River Road was also on there as a bike path. And if you've been on that, you know, you wouldn't want to ride a bike on there.
And
Yeah.
that's not even 2 lanes.
No, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not even that safe for driving.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I don't think the bike path map really represents safe, separated bike paths.
Yeah.
And that was the point I was trying to make at the beginning. We do, for sustainable transportation, we do want to have sidewalks so that people can walk to their destination, and safe bike paths so people can pedal to the destination. You can't just take a map of Fallbrook and draw a line and say, here it is. That's impractical.
To follow up on Morema's comments about Camp Pendleton, I actually had a bunch of questions about Camp Pendleton, and I used this email address, pendletonmedia@usmc.mil. I pasted into the chat, and they were very helpful about responding to questions. And also, Camp Pendleton is an ecological reserve because it's so massive, and they only use a very, very tiny portion of the actual land space. I mean, it goes for miles and miles. So they've got there's a whole team of people who manage the ecology or who pay attention to that sort of thing. I pasted a link where I posted about how Camp Pendleton is an ecological reserve. It's got multiple different kinds of habitat, and basically there's endangered species that live there and stuff like that. So anyways,
And the
I just
Fallbrook Gate is the gate to the ammunition dump at Pendleton. So maybe a small part, but it's our gate.
well, I know that the Hawaii, the bases, the military's presence in Hawaii means that Hawaii is terribly, terribly polluted because of all of the maneuvers and the bases and everything that's going on
And the
there.
bombing.
Yeah. But Camp Pendleton is actually quite a different beast. So you know, it's worth following up to get the details about what's going on there.
Right. Following up is key. Yeah.
We had, just to mention them, Camp Pendleton used to, it's been a while, but it used to be that they really took serious their role as being stewards of all that land. And we had come talk to FCAT one time, the guy that was director of their, geez, I don't know if it was environmental or climate change or what his title was. But that guy's since retired, so I don't know. It could have all changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, It's a beautiful place in there if you could dodge the artillery. I've spent a little time on Camp Pendleton.
Does anybody have any other comments that they would like to make?
Would you tell us again
Yeah,
about it?
I would, I'd like to make a comment regarding the EVs. I just bought a plug-in hybrid, and what I see happening with electric vehicles, and I'm by no means an expert because I don't have a full EV. It's a plug-in only, and I haven't really yet used it because I've only just bought it. But I think most people with EVs charge at home. And you know, those chargers at gas stations, or not gas stations, but at on parking lots and things like that, that's for when you're traveling or long trips. Because, you know, your typical EV will go 200 or 300 miles. And for, you know, going down to San Diego or driving around town, you don't really use those public EV stations.
Actually, I
That's
talked, sorry, but I have spoken to a number of people that were plugged in at the library. And if you
Yeah.
bought an EV but did not spring for the cost of a charger, which is quite expensive, then you're limited to just running a 3-prong extension cord to your house, and that charges very slowly. So I've talked to people, and they say, you know, if I just go to work and back, then I can charge overnight using a 3-prong extension cord. But if I do other things, then it runs down the battery and I have to get a faster charger.
Yeah.
Also, we have a lot of rentals and a lot of people who don't have a facility, don't have a house where they can plug it in, or they haven't gone for a fast charger. So it's just too slow.
Yeah, we have so many people living in apartments, and there's no way for them to be able to use an electric car. So why should they have to buy the gas-powered cars and pay all that money for gas and have all that pollution?
Well,
So-
you know, and another thing with the charging stations is that electricity is a lot more expensive than if you use your own home electricity, or if you're in an apartment complex, if you can get reasonably priced electricity. You need that to make the electric vehicle work, because if you're paying 50 cents a kilowatt or whatever it is at the public electric charging stations, it's practically cheaper to use gas.
Actually, I don't think that that's true. We do have the most expensive electricity bills on the continent. We pay something like 50 or 60 cents per kilowatt hour. And I admit to being spoiled because I used to live in Montana up near a hydroelectric dam, and we paid 10 or 12 cents per kilowatt hour. And so the electric bills here are a terrible shock. But I don't know. I don't honestly know if using the chargers is more expensive than a standard electric bill, because our standard electric bills are ridiculously high.
It's comparable.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
have different ways off the grid or on the grid or with a built-in power station at the resale stations. The ones that are sponsored by Tesla and by resell, their energy is cheaper, and that's why you see more terminals. But if you see a Tesla sponsored one, they're limited to from like 8 to 11, depending on space. But yeah, just the installer or the location where they're at puts the bill on the installation and the upkeep. But it is.
Well, that's good to know. Well,
I'm wondering, Guy, what is the comparison of the cost of home energy versus the charging station?
They use a different type of kilowatt metering for home and that commercial station. but it is substantial. I mean, because if you connect it with the inverter and a regular 3-prong, you're using a lot more energy at home to power or to get a decent charge on your EV.
Yeah, when we used the charger, when we went to Palm Springs, it was only, I think, $3 was was what it cost us. But yet it takes us 5 hours at home to charge our car completely if it's down to nothing.
Yeah, I've seen a full charge in 15 minutes when someone was down out and then, oh gosh, and so they'll go and they'll do 15 minutes and spend $17.50, and I'm like, really? Really? So yeah, my investments into that and all those programs, it just made sense to get multiple power stations, and they would sit there, and if they have a fuel cell on location, then it can work and fuel multiple vehicles at a time.
Yeah, and if you're
savings.
if you're lucky enough to own a house with solar, well, then it's free.
Basically, yeah. I've
Other
done a couple of installs and actually had Sunrun Solar install our systems, and I made a kickback. They got a kickback, and they are definitely seeing us when they're slightly off the grid with what the system is generating for their fueling of their EV. So it's really interesting, though. It's changed over the bit in the last 2 years because the material for the newer roofs, the panels themselves, and the efficiency of the newer equipment brings the cost down. So I always thought solar was a scam, and I still haven't installed solar here at my house, but got a couple panels and some commercial installations that are showing, positive, worth that investment. So
Jennifer, would you like to talk about your comment?
Sure. Can you hear me? I'm not in a great place to talk. Mostly
Yeah,
listening.
we can hear you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to offer that perspective. I'm actually a behavioral scientist. My area of study is environmental behavior change. I'm also joining this group for the first time. Saw it on Friends of Fallbrook. I'm a Fallbrook resident and was interested and really happy with what I'm hearing. I just wanted to offer that perspective because I'm sorry, I was walking. We often look at environmental problems as easily fixed by just technology. If everyone could just get an electric vehicle or everyone just gets solar, or we talk about infrastructure solutions like let's create a recycling infrastructure or composting infrastructure or bike lanes. And we sort of have this, we ignore the role of human behavior. And so I think that it's not the only solution, but a lot of environmental problems are caused by human behavior. And so we need to also be looking at behavior solutions. And so I just like that to kind of be part of the conversation. I could talk for hours on that, but I will stop there. Just wanted to add that little piece.
I'd like to tag on to what Jennifer said. We're wired, our organisms are wired to respond to the near thing, not the far thing. We'll go for the reward that comes now and the avoidance of the punishment that comes now. And just thinking about, the development of solar and the potential savings and this that people can experience. And I can imagine a person with solar comparing bills with somebody who doesn't. And ultimately, you choose the thing that is the most immediately rewarding. We don't make long-term decisions about what's great for the planet or for us 20 years from now. But if energy efficient and climate protective energy solutions proliferate, those are going to be easy choices for people to make.
Yes, thank you. Alan, would you like to talk your comment?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Joy. I really appreciated the presentation, Tom. That was really well done. And thank you, Joy, for hosting As always, these are really, really good discussions. I put in the chat some information because I wanted to remind your members here that the county's climate action plan is still in legal limbo. We thought we had passed a rather good climate action plan for the county back in September, when the board included the fire safe and VMT efficient provisions in the climate action plan, only to find out a week or so later that the county council took exception to the fact that the board had passed it with that amendment. So we are back in court and fighting that issue because the Sierra Club really wants to see fire safe and VMT efficient amendments in these climate action plans. And here in Fallbrook, it's probably of utmost importance because of your area and your zone. So I put the link in the chat for anyone that's interested in finding out. I would hope that as the Board of Supervisors meets, that if you have the opportunity to give public comment, that as Fallbrook residents, you will do so on this issue.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Joy, I just wanted to add one thing about behavioral stuff, which followed on Jennifer's comments, which is I chose this house where I live right now because it is an easy walk to downtown. And I walk downtown all the time to the library and other places. But I had a neighbor who was like literally 10 feet farther away from downtown than me. And she would drive 3 blocks to the Rite Aid store. I mean, it just, she wasn't carrying anything, but she just didn't walk that far. So, you know, behavioral change is just like, I don't know. I mean, people, it's hard. And I'm the only one that I see carrying reusable bags into the grocery store. Everybody else just pays the nickel or dime or whatever it costs. And then they get the bags, and then they come home and toss them out. So, I mean, I would actually like to see a presentation on zero waste, because I don't know how you get to zero waste unless you turn into a pack mule and carry all your containers and your reusable bags, and I mean, and shop at stores that have bulk bins, which there aren't in Fallbrook. So, you know, zero waste. I mean, I compost everything, but still I have to take out a trash can maybe every couple of months because it's full of plastic film. So anyways, that's behavioral change is the hardest.
Actually, Cynthia, would you tell us about our meeting next month? That's a good
Next month, we're going to have Bob Hill from EDCO, and he's going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of recycling. Kind of a follow-up to last month's meeting, which was about, you know, zero waste, actually zero wasting and cooking. So, and I was thinking about what Harriet said about all these plastic films that you end up with in your trash can. And there are places that you can allegedly bring your plastic bags and cellophane type substances to recycle. And I do say allegedly because I'm not sure what happens to them after you bring them there.
Yeah, Daniels used to have it. I think they still do.
Yeah. So maybe next month the EDCO guy can enlighten us about what to do about all that. I mean, what to do about all that plastic.
Target takes them. If you still shop at Target, there isn't one in Fallbrook. But a lot of stores, if you ask them, they hide it someplace. They will take it. In fact, Major Market would take recycled plastic bags at one point.
Well, thank you, everybody. Tom, do you want to add anything or just say?
I was going to say that
thanks and
we'll send out to everybody on the FCAT list information about the Sierra Club meeting that FCAT is going to be at. at the library on May 9th. You should all come.
Yeah,
We'll send that out.
thank you. And Tom, that was a great presentation. It was a great summary and a great springboard for discussion, and I really appreciate everybody's comments.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll see you soon, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you all. Nice to see you all. Take care.